I love working with the people that ask what other people consider dumb questions, because it means they actually care enough to admit that they don't know something and figure out what it's supposed to mean.
Someone gave me a book on Andragogy. It's an adult learning theory. What struck me was right in the beginning is like, unlike children, adults need a purpose of why, to know the purpose of why they're learning something. And I was like, no, kids need that too. That's like everybody. Right. I'm just reading this thing and it's like, this is how people learn. Welcome to this episode of Education is Life. Today we have a parent from Greenfields with us who's going to be able to share some of their background and some of the experiences at Greenfields. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be here. So,
Chris, just if we start with what your education was like, your K-12 in college or any post, what was your experience with schooling?
Yeah, so I grew up in Western Massachusetts. For Western Massachusetts, one of the bigger cities. Like I think our high school was about 1,000 kids, something like that. Pretty standard, K through 12 experience, I would say. Most classes were, they were fine. I did well. Like I got really good grades and everything, but not much like truly interested me. Like I found school pretty easy, honestly. Got bored a lot. I was in band. That carried me through for most of the time. I really enjoyed that aspect of school. I was even like drum major my senior year in concert band. I tried to get into jazz band, but that didn't work out so well. Just scheduling wise, it didn't happen. And then I had, I do remember some teachers that were really good, science, physics teachers that I really enjoyed. But yeah, most of schooling was pretty boring. The only class I remember not doing well in was creative writing. And it's not because I couldn't do it. I mean, I don't care for writing too much in general. But I think it was the only class that I almost failed, but it was only because I didn't do the work. It's not because I couldn't do it. It's just, I chose not to. But
we were just like, this is silly. I'm just not doing this.
Yeah, it's not even so much that it was silly. It was just, I didn't feel like it. I had no desire to do the assignments. And the ones that I did, I definitely didn't put any true effort into it. It was just enough to pass the class. But most other classes, especially science and math stuff, it'd be straight A's and I wouldn't even have to really do much for it. It was just that stuff came naturally to me, and there wasn't much homework or project time or stuff like that. It was just do well on the test and that was fine. But yeah, like I mentioned, the band and the music aspect stuff really, spoke to me. I spent a lot of time doing that. That kept my spirits up, I guess you could say.
Were you in a band outside of school?
I was in a rock band, which, we played some local gigs. It was fun. We even had an album, which I think is available on iTunes, if I remember correctly.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the other interesting aspects of it, I was in a couple marketing classes where I actually got to run the school store. We had a store open in the cafeteria. It was mostly candy and snacks and stuff like that. But there was some notebooks and sweatshirts and stuff like that, but it was mostly just candy.
Well, that's all anyone bought.
Yeah, for the most part. But yeah, so the first year I took the marketing class, I just got to run the store. So I was, behind the counter, doing sales, and it got really busy because there was a lot of people in a very short period of time that could come in. But then I took the second year of the marketing class and I actually got to manage the store. So I actually got to place orders and stuff like that, which was fun. I really enjoyed doing that. Yeah.
So far, we have two of your biggest memories from school of creative writing, where you just kind of dialed it in, and running the store and band.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And then the whole physics and science classes, stuff like that. I certainly enjoyed those, but I wouldn't say there was anything truly noteworthy about them. They were just, oh yeah, this is this. All right. That's good. I like it. That's fine.
Did you have to dissect anything?
Yes, but I don't remember. The only thing I remember dissecting is worms. I'm sure I did other stuff too, but I don't remember.
I had totally forgotten about the worm, but now I definitely remember on the the black plasticky thing that you cut them on.
Yep.
You pin them open so you can see the things.
Yeah.
We did frogs in middle school, and then I'm thinking what my memories were. Right, we did cats, and that was weird because it's like I've actually skinned a cat, and that's just weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
But anyway, random memories from K-12. But, when we talk to a lot of people about memories from their childhood and memories from school specifically, very few of them have to do with what actually happened in the classroom.
Right.
It's a lot of kind of like what COVID is, right? It was just a big smear of time that you just did what needed to get done and you moved on. But the things you really wanted to do, you snuck in during recess or after school or during creative writing class, I guess.
Yeah.
So you did pretty well. You enjoyed some of the marketing stuff and doing some hands-on things. What did you end up deciding for college? Or I guess, assuming you chose to go to college.
Yeah, so I did choose to go to college. And it was one of those things I didn't put much thought into it. I'm sure like a lot of people, it's just like, oh yeah, you go to college. That's what you do. So that's what I did. So yeah.
Did your parents go to college?
No, neither of my parents went to college. They did not go to college. I know my mom didn't go to college. I don't think my dad went to college. He worked in a machine shop. He still works in the machine shop. But like he started as a machinist and now he's, does ordering and client relations and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't go to college for that. But yeah, so I went to college. My overall college experience, probably not typical compared to most people. I went to one school that I thought I was going to like. Turned out it was much smaller and let's just say easier than I thought it was going to be. And I went to school for like some kind of like just generic business thing. Like I didn't know what to do with my life like most people.
It sounds like so much like my experience was like you go to college because that's what you're expected to do.
Yep.
My dad graduated from Cleveland State. My mom didn't go to college, and out of my mom has 7 brothers and sisters, and so I got cousins out the wazoo. Yeah. Out of all of my cousins, no one had gone to college yet, so I was the first one. Wow. To go to college. And I was by no means the oldest. It just wasn't something that happened in our family. So, but there was no like, how do you pick a college or what do you do?
Right.
But there also seemed like this is what high school was about. So like all this there's a certain buildup of excitement about what college was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I had a bit of the same thing. I got there and like, for me, the town was really small. The college wasn't, but it was like way easier than I thought it should be. It seemed like it was just going to be a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went to that college for a year and a half and it was like you just said, it was a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. I didn't feel like I was getting a whole lot out of it. Like the people weren't bad there, but I wasn't like really making any connections or anything. Like I didn't feel like I fit in, to put it bluntly. So then I found another college in the same area, which was a technical institute. So I went there and that was a complete 180. That was way over my head. Like it was the first time in my life where I was just like, oh, this is not going to be easy. This is going to take a lot of work. So I went there for a year. At that point, it was computer science. So yeah, I stayed there for a year and then I dropped out of there mostly not because it was hard, but mostly because it was really expensive and I still didn't think it like justified the cost. I don't remember how much it was, but it was a lot more than the previous.
It was probably like $18,000, right? And now college costs are just maniacal.
Right. No, I want to say this one was more like it was expensive even for back then.
Even then.
But And then all through college, even the first one I went to, I was still working part-time. I've worked a lot of hours since I was 16, I think. Like, it's just something I've always done. I enjoy it, so it's fine. But yeah, so I was, working a lot of hours and then trying to, keep up with these classes and stuff like that. And I just didn't think it was worth it. So I ended up leaving that school, took a little bit of time off, just worked a lot, basically. And then I ended up
Were you doing computer type work, or what were you doing?
No, I was working at Walmart most of that time, actually. I had like some other random side jobs and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, it was Walmart. Yeah, so I think I took a year off or one semester off. I forgot what it was. But then I ended up going to Boston, where I got a job in an accounting office at a IT consulting firm, and went to school part-time while I did that. So the workload was much more manageable, you could say.
Yeah.
And then ended up getting my associate's degree through that college while I was working. So yeah, out of probably like 6 years worth of school, I ended up with a 2-year degree. I don't regret it, like, by any means. My associate's degree has served me well, but yeah, not a typical college experience, most likely.
How did that experience inform your life after school?
Honestly, I think like the whole like education aspect of it didn't really matter to me too much. I think all the work experience gave me a lot more than the education experience. It's not to say that the education experience didn't play a role at all, but yeah, like I learned some stuff, but not a whole heck of a lot, to be honest, through formal education. I'm also the type of person that just likes to learn on my own time. Like in my current job, like I have to learn new technologies and, new frameworks or whatever, on a regular basis. And it's easy for me to pick that stuff up, just by reading documentation or watching a few, how-to videos or like small training courses, stuff like that. I never really cared for like the formal long-term education type of process.
So you're built more for what's needed today. You need to learn what's coming up next and unlearn whatever wasn't before, and you kind of just that constant cycle of keeping up with the new technologies and keeping up with all the changes that are going on.
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say. I found one of the things that kind of drives me a lot is I have to have a question that I need an answer to, and then I can focus on answering that question. So, that question might be, at work, like we need a report and it needs to solve, the report needs to answer this question. It's like, all right, I can probably do that. But if you just come to me like, I need a pretty report, I'm not going to give you anything because I don't know what you want. I like to, learn stuff or do stuff because there's a driving need for it, not just because, oh, this is interesting, let me do this. Like I do that stuff too, but for the most part, it's, oh, I want to see this or I want to know this, so let me go and do that.
One of the things that got me pushed deeper into education, someone gave me a book on Andragogy when I was working in test preparation. And I'm like, what's Andragogy? And like, well, it's like, what pedagogy is, right? Yeah, well, it's adult learning theory. And so I opened it up, started reading it. It's dense, but I got my degree in economics, so I'm used to reading dense stuff. But what struck me was right in the beginning is like, unlike children, adults need a purpose of why, to know the purpose of why they're learning something. And I was like, no, kids need that too. That's like everybody. Right. I'm just reading this thing, and it's like, this is how people learn, like not just adults, right? This is ridiculous. And that got me all fired up. But that knowing what the purpose is certainly helps drive through and frame the information that you're getting. And I think it also, well, not just think, the research bears out that it shows the deeper learning comes from those things, where it's purpose-based stuff.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
When did you do the Appalachian Trail?
I did that right after I got my associate's degree in 2005. Got my degree. I was planning on leaving the accounting office I was in anyway. Just, have some fun for a little while, hike the trail, and then, find something else when I'm done. I took, 6 months off or whatever it was, to hike the trail, which was, an amazing experience. Like, 2,000 miles along the East Coast over 5 months. I wouldn't say for me it was a very transformational experience like it is for a lot of people, but I think it definitely helped solidify who I am. I've always had a lot of self-confidence and like more or less knew who I was. Like a lot of the stories you hear about people through hiking, they're like, oh, I changed my life and I got a whole new perspective and all this stuff. And I'm just like, no, not me. I'm like, this is who I am. Like, it was great. I enjoyed it.
Where did you get that confidence from? Was it the more of the kind of working and figuring stuff out on your own? Was it something you had always felt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of naturally who I am. And like growing up, like I have two brothers. We're like each, more or less 2 years apart from each other. Our parents took a very hands-off approach, you could say. Like, they were there. They were certainly part of our lives, but they didn't like try to control us or like, have many rules or whatever. Most of the time we were just, on our own. We, doing whatever we felt like doing. So I think just because of the environment that we were raised in, we had, the concept of, self-reliance from a really early age. It wasn't even something that was like taught to us. I don't think they meant to do that. It's just, that was the environment we were in. Just, it worked for everybody. So that's what we did. Nobody was ever like really holding my hand, to go through things. It was just like, and sure, if I had a problem, I could go to them. Like I had people to go to, but it was just if I needed it, it wasn't people like, oh, I think you need to do this, so you should do this.
No, I feel like that was a much more common way to parent back in my generation, for sure. It's the old stories of, be back when the lights come on, when the street lights come on, right? So it's like you're out until 9:30, 10 o'clock on a summer night, and you didn't have cell phones. There was no way for parents to figure out where you were. If they wanted to find me, I don't think they could have ever found me back in the woods.
Right.
And now it's like you get arrested if your kid's at the park by themselves. There's an interesting study that came out last year, maybe, that compared parenting styles around the world with the safety nets of those cultures, and the places that had the most hands-off parenting approach, and the ones that had the least security net had the highest, snowplow parents and helicopter parents, because they're just worried about their kids' future. And I feel like the everyone needs to go to college movement has made college admissions feel like a zero-sum game. And that's what's really driven a lot of the, like, I will make sure, you hear the stories now about it goes into the work, like their first job, and the parents want to be there for the interview. It's like, no, just stop. But it does. In the city of Chicago, the selective enrollment process for high schools, same type of thing. And in many ways, it is a zero-sum game, right? There's only so many seats at these selective enrollment high schools, which aren't all that unique in what they do. But the amount of pressure that gets put on seventh graders is just insane, all in the name of getting into a good high school, to get into a college, to get a good job, to make a bunch of money, to, I don't know, have a midlife crisis. But that's not what we do at Greenfields, right? Our aim is to do more of the stuff that you're talking about, that really develop that self-reliance, that understanding who you are, finding out what your strengths are, being able to do hands-on, purpose-driven type pieces, and get the academics done as part of that. What has been your experience as a parent at Greenfields?
I mean, overall, the experience has been great, to say the least. Even like, this goes back to my upbringing. Like, we've taken a relatively hands-off approach with Amelia. Like, she's pretty self-driven on her own most of the time. So, yeah, there's not much that we need to do. Like every once in a while, we'll need a prod her if she's like slightly behind on project or something like that. But if that's the case, it's just because for whatever reason she's not feeling it that session, which is fine. Yeah, and like once in a while we'll talk about what she's working on or what she's doing or what's needed to get to the next level, something like that. But yeah, we take a pretty hands-off approach most of the time.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance from an administrative standpoint too of, the idea is to create as student driven of an environment as is possible based on the age groups that we're in. Mm-hmm. But making sure that they understand like what the general objectives are and what are the challenges, right? Here's the question that you need to come up with an answer to. And we want you to develop not just come up with the answer to that question, but to develop the skills that are going to allow you to come up with the answer to any question that gets asked. But when a kid kind of like isn't into it that session, or maybe they're not into it 2 sessions in a row, like when is that time to kind of prod and cajole a bit more? And we talk a lot about it as a guide group of what's a safe failure and what's an unsafe failure. And most of the time, the answer is just talk to the kid more and see what's going on. And, when you have authentic conversations with young people, they give it right back and tell you where they are and what's going on. And sometimes they won't have the words for it. I was listening to something. There was a high school student talking about, what advice would you give parents? And she said, if we need your advice on something, we'll come and ask for it. And when we do that, we really want and we really need your advice. But for you just to come in to whenever, whatever, and tell us what to do or how to do it, or that we're doing something wrong, that just isn't helpful, and we don't even hear what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, I'm just rambling. But one of the things that we tell the Griffins is the first step of being a good independent learner is knowing when to ask for help. Because it seems like a strange paradox. Like, no, I'm supposed to do this on my own. No, you're supposed to be able to manage the process on your own, the process of learning. And oftentimes that includes finding an expert, finding someone who's been there before, someone who's done it, and getting used to that. Because a lot of times school is built around, like, if you ask a question in front of the wrong group, like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You should have already known that.
Yeah. Even like along those lines, even at work right now, like I love working with the people that ask what other people consider dumb questions, because it means they actually care enough to admit that they don't know something and figure out what it's supposed to mean. And I can almost guarantee in a lot of cases, there's somebody else who didn't know along with them, but didn't bother to find out.
That's what we tell them all the time. Like, you being willing to ask that question isn't just helping you, it's helping everybody else in that, who's at that meeting or in that class, whatever, because someone else is in there who doesn't understand it either, but is afraid to ask. And then the other people are all getting a new viewpoint of how to answer your question themselves to make sure they know it, right? It's all those questions just develop a deeper learning.
Yeah, and I could especially see that being true in the Greenfields environment, because like if you're just like going over like simple math problems and you have the one kid who's like, I don't get it. What's this mean? But everybody else does understand it, then that can be a waste of time for everybody else. But, because like most of the curriculum stuff is, Khan Academy or, whatever the other programs are, they can do that at their own pace. And if they don't understand it, they just redo it. And if they don't understand that, there are other people they can ask and, get help. But so like some of those more fundamental basic stuff, they don't need to ask all the time. So they can, focus more on the intellectual, like higher level questions to actually bring up, within a group setting.
Yeah, like, why are we doing this math question?
Right.
No, I've had a number of kids like say, why do we have to learn all this math? And I said, well, there's not an easy answer to that, or a good answer rather, right? The answers over time, I'll start in 1894. And since then, a bunch of bureaucrats and politicians have decided this is what everybody should learn. And so if you want to actually graduate from high school, which probably do because it has some benefits to it, you're going to need to do this. But the reason we don't spend a lot of time creating classes and making you go over it and do it again is because the real learning I want to see you get out of math is how to approach a problem, how to apply something you learned from the past to something you're dealing with now, what to do to learn a new concept, what resources can you find to get there. Like, I want you to develop all those learning skills that go around it and the grit that it takes to get through learning something you don't really understand that well or something you don't know. Those are all the skills and the mindset I'm looking for you to get out of learning math, right? Mm-hmm. Do I care if you end up knowing how imaginary numbers work? Not really. Do I want you to know there's such a thing as imaginary numbers? Yeah. Right. Do I want you to know that what trigonometry is and what it can be used for? Yeah. Because what you're going to be challenged with is how to bring novel solutions to complex problems. And so the computer's already better than you and probably is only going to get even better than you at solving these math problems. But if you know what problem to ask the computer and know that it can solve it or get the right people to do it, that's really the skill. So you need the exposure. But, if we focus on some of that have to stuff as ways to develop other lifelong skills.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of a side note, I was talking to Amelia about something. I don't remember what it was, but something involved like doing a math equation to figure something out. And, I kind of worked with her, like led her in the correct direction on how to answer the question. And the way I framed it, her first response was, why'd you set this up like a Khan Academy problem? I'm like, well, I don't know much about Khan Academy, but this is how you solve it. Like, this is just how you would have to do it.
So what have been some of your favorite projects that Amelia has done in her time at Greenfields?
The business fairs always stand out. Those are a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.
What did she do for business fair this year?
She made the do-it-yourself plushy popsicle kits.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it was like the man, I'm drawing a blank on all the names of them. Like the Kiwi crate stuff, where you order a box and then it comes with the parts and instructions, and then you put it together. So she did that. That went over really well. But I remember, I think a couple of years ago, you also did the medieval one. We got to go to the school and, people had like their old booths to show off, what they learned and what they did. And I mostly been really impressed with the blacksmith table, because they actually made their own chainmail, which is very tedious. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, but they did it, and they did it very well.
Yeah, that was impressive though. It was a big piece. It wasn't just like, here's how they would have made it. They're like, no, let's make one. Right.
Yeah. Like, they made a full shirt. Like, it was, it was really well.
I think that's one of the hardest things about the online exhibitions though, is there's a lot of give and take to the exhibitions when the parents can go around, or whoever shows up for exhibition can go around and actually talk to the Griffins. Yeah. Because the Griffins aren't always great at communicating all of what they did and all the amazing stuff they did. But when you start asking them a couple questions, you're like, oh, wow. Like, you really got this. We did the medical. Were you there for when we did the medical simulation? The middle school kids did it, so I don't. Yeah, no. They had to learn like all these different diseases and what the diagnostic tools for it, so that they could. And then we had people trained up as patients come in, and so in their team, they had to like talk them through, ask the questions, and diagnose whatever their disease was. And it's the type of thing that the level that they learned this stuff at was just insane. But you're like, so what did you learn today? Like, oh, we learned about some blah, blah, blah. It's like,
right.
you have no idea. Or, when they're looking to get their first job or go out on an apprenticeship and they're like, I haven't really done anything. I'm like, the stuff we do every day, like even studio maintenance, right? So the Griffins clean the school at the end of every day. In the structure they've come up with, there's like managers in different areas. And so it's like you literally managed your own cleaning crew when you were 8, right? Mm-hmm. Most other people will never get any management experience until they're in their 20s. Right. And I think it's such a valuable piece to understand. And I think today, this week, the Travelers and Navigators are doing a Griffin-led week. So the guide DJ isn't running the studio; they're running it themselves. And just that knowledge of what it takes to do that, seeing the other side of it, is so informing whether you end up doing that or not. Like having managed people gives you a better understanding of how to be a good employee, or because you understand what it takes to be a manager and what it is they're trying to solve. Yep. So I think they have all these amazing experiences that they don't even recognize as unusual, special, or anything, which is kind of amazing all by itself.
Would they consider normal? Other people would be like, wow, you actually get to do that? And they're just like, yeah, that's what we do.
No, the easiest thing they have to relate to other kids with is, yeah, I don't have homework. It's like, really, of all the things you do, all you tell your friends about your school is, yeah, we don't have homework. What do you think, if anything, Amelia will take away from living in a pandemic? Like, do you think we're going to have an era of like depression-minded people, like from that generation, or is there like this? Do you think there's going to be an ongoing influence having lived through this?
I like to think there'll be some kind of ongoing influence. For Amelia herself, I think she's at the age where it doesn't really matter a whole heck of a lot. Like, I'm sure she'll remember it, but I don't think she'll like base her life decisions based on, the pandemic. So like, if it happens again in the future, she'll be like, oh, we're doing this again. Like, she'll have that experience and it'll certainly, help her make decisions in the future, but I don't think it'll be like a life defining moment for her. But that might just be me putting my eyes on her. I don't know. But yeah, I think the people it will affect the most is, either the people that were in school, especially if they were in like, their senior year, and like now that year is kind of busted. They may or may not graduate. Like, that's in a whole big, weird situation now. Or the people like that would have started their career last year. Now, they probably didn't, or if they did, it was a very different experience. Like, people that were about to go through a life change anyway, I think will be affected a lot more than people who were just living a normal daily life, have to change their daily life, which, sure, it sucks, but, you get through it. But, it's not like it really affected the end result. It's just like, yeah, this year or so, however long it's going to last, was rough, but oh well.
I think it is going to be interesting by age how it plays out. My eldest son is one of those seniors, right? So This was his senior year. So it's like just totally weird. And now heading off into college, like, I don't know. Do you need to have prom to have gone to high school? Like, I don't know, all those things like that I think of anyway as like the high school experience. If you wrap those things up, what would be there? So much of it was missing. But it was also like, sometimes it just feels like another one of those like old people baggage things that you bring to the table, right? Where it's like, how could you not have prom? Who cares? When you go back and you talk to people, like half of people hated prom. So, but it's definitely for those people who are kind of pushing out and starting something new, that the frame of reference that you have isn't going to be what it's actually going to be like. Yeah. And so it's like waiting to see what happens. And And I feel like I've been like that some way and just like having to wait it out. There's certainly easier times to run a school than right now. What I hope is I think we're going to have more mental health problems coming out of it. I feel like it's been long enough now that we're definitely getting some kids in pretty depressive states that everyone doesn't even know that they're in. So getting after that, we'll definitely end up with some more OCD people who, they're washing their hands all the time. They're making sure everything's right. We had one student. She said she now feels like when someone she doesn't know starts to walk by her without a mask on, she gets the same feeling as she does when a car comes at her. So I think that it is one of those things where you just don't know how they're taking it. And so just talking about it, making sure they know that we're there. That's our pandemic part of the episode. So I started doing this podcast right when the pandemic started. And so we're like, we should put a little asterisk next to it. Like this was a pandemic episode.
Right. Yeah, I remember
here we are, year some odd months later. So what do you see as a future for Amelia? What do you think she wants out of what her journey is going to be?
I have no idea. I mean, I know she keeps saying she wants to go to Greenfields until she can't, like through high school, college, if it's a thing at that point. But yeah, no, she loves it at Greenfields. She definitely wants to stay there for as long as she can.
She needs to get in on. I found out yesterday actually that there's a bet between two of the students about who is going to be the longest tenured Greenfields person ever, and they both started the same year, and I think they're 1 or 2 years older than Amelia. So, and same story where it's like, well, what are you going to do for college? Well, Rob said we'd probably have a college by then.
Right.
So she can get in on that bet.
Nice. Yeah. Like I usually don't even try to think too much about, stuff that far in the future because who knows what life is going to be like at that point and how people change and situations change. You just don't know. Like, sure, I think about it, but not a whole lot. I certainly don't put a lot of, time into, just thinking about that far into the future. But yeah, no, it'll be great to see, Amelia finish going through Greenfields and doing whatever she ends up doing. I know, she definitely likes art, just drawing and anything art related really. But she also really likes, science and, space related stuff. Like we watch SpaceX launches together all the time, stuff like that. So, she might go in that direction too, or, you can always merge stuff like that, be an artist for NASA. Like, who knows? Like there's so many options and possibilities. Like,
yeah, that's funny you bring up the artist for NASA. I was covering after school one day and it was time to make a video it was movie making day or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they decided that they were going to do a trip to Mars and a space shuttle and whatever it was. And one person was at NASA headquarters. And so they were at command center and like, hey, we should make a logo for them to put up. And she's like, and she wanted to make this like perfect logo. Only have like 4 minutes, right? There's no time. And she tried to put something together really fast and she wasn't happy with it. And she was like, so I probably would have steered that a little differently if I knew that like the space and art, if I would have put those things together, I would have like, maybe you're not the right person to pull this off in the next 4 minutes. Right. we need someone who's just going to throw something together and be happy with it. What type of parent would really struggle being a Greenfields parent?
I mean, a helicopter parent, anybody who's like really trying to, micromanage their kid's life. I can't see that going over very well because Greenfields is basically teaching the opposite of that. So it'd be really weird to get, complete opposite perspectives.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those families slip through the audition process. And, it works out great for the kid for a couple of years. But then the parent, like, their head ends up exploding. And the kid also has that balance of like, why is my at school life so different than my at home life?
Yeah.
And how do I balance that? And so those, if you're ready to reevaluate your parenting style, then we could work out for you. But if you are super worried about what college your kid is going to go to when they're 7 years old, like, it's going to be a rough run, because I believe we do a fantastic job of preparing young people for whatever it is they want to do, whether it's college or start their own business, do a nonprofit, whatever. But we don't spend a lot of time worrying about it or talking about it or making sure everything is aimed up at that.
Right.
Well, I got to say, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and certainly a pleasure having Amelia as part of the Greenfields community, watching her grow and watching the value that she brings to the discussion she's part of. And it's just a great thing to watch.
Yeah, I'm just glad you're here and we can be a part of it. It's definitely worked out extremely well for us.
Well, thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate your time. Go out and have a wonderful day as the weather dropped 30 degrees from yesterday. And we'll talk again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Rob.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And please subscribe, and we will talk to you next time.